Tonight, the Justice League is dead, in a parallel Earth manner of speaking. Green Arrow has a drunk polar bear. I literally couldn't explain it if I tried. And the culling, for better or worse, is finally here. I volunteer as the first sacrifice. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 35 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and there's no intro today. This episode is way too stuffed as is. We have 4 new number ones, 2 crossovers, 1 annual, and frankly no time left to do it. So I'm just going to tell you all the comics that came out this week and we're going to jump right into it, okay? So, May 2nd, 2012, we have 14 comics and they are the number 9 issues of Batwing, Detective Comics, Action Comics, Red Lanterns, Green Arrow, Justice League International, Stormwatch, Animal Man, and Swamp Thing. Additionally, we have Teen Titans Annual number 1, which is part 1 of the Culling crossover, and we have 4 brand new number 1s in the form of Earth 2, World's Finest, GI Combat, and Dial H. It's a fun show and there's something for everybody, but unfortunately there's still no time, so let's jump into the first comic of the week. Teen Titans Annual number 1, written by Scott Lobdell and Tom DeFalco, art by Brett Booth. Funny story about this comic, it is part 1 of the Culling after some preludes, and you would think that that would mean it would definitely be included in Teen Titans Volume 2 trade paperback, aka The Culling. But it turns out, no, they only included it in the Culling Collected edition that also collects the Legion Lost and Superboy issues. So if you want this issue but don't want to get the Culling trade because you have some level of decency as a human being, you have to get it individually. God, I hate this event so much. Okay, so Teen Titans Annual 1, broken down into 4 chapters, all of which stupid. So Chapter 1, we have Red Robin. He's arrived in the Crucible and is being faced off with a bunch of other teenagers, superpowered and not. And Red Robin is being attacked by Artemis, a well-known Green Arrow character from before the New 52. Keep that in mind. Thunder and Lightning. And they think they've got him trapped, but then he just immediately turns the tables, gets the one up on him, and be like, look, if I wanted to kill you, I would. I want to team up. And they're like, all right, cool. And then they make their way through the Crucible and just talk about all the kids here. Some of them have powers, some of them don't. Whoever wins this Battle Royale will get to be on Harvest's team of the Ravagers. And yeah, whatever. So then as they make their way through, they're stopped by a guy named, I think it's Fist Point. And they're like, hey, you're on our turf. Whoever's on our turf gets to die. And then they just beat the crap out of Fist Point with no problem. And they're like, okay, yeah, let's stop being stupid. But as they make their way forward, they come across the rest of the Teen Titans. And apparently Solstice is trying to convince Superboy after his prelude issue to join the team. And Kid Flash and pretty much nobody is really happy about it. But Solstice is like, well, prove them wrong. Prove that you're worth trusting. So he comes over and is kind of with them for a while. And Red Robin points out that, you know what? Maybe this is exactly where we need to be to do the most good. Maybe this is like how we help these kids. Chapter 2, we follow the Legion Lost, who was also in the Crucible, and they're trying to figure out what the hell just happened. They got jumped by a team of Ravagers, and now they're waking up in totally new outfits in a lava pool somewhere. And as they're trying to figure out what's going on, they think, hold on, maybe this has something to do with like some level of future tech, because like our teleporting guy Gates, he should be able to get out of here. He should be able to bail, but he's not. So something from the future tech is able to keep them around. So they're trying to figure out maybe this has something to do with the plot of our own book. Then we cut over to Harvest and his little team of baddies, who include Leash, Omen, and a third guy who doesn't get a name yet. Harvest basically says, hey, Leash, go out and start the battle between these two. So Leash shows up, and he grabs the Teen Titans, and he grabs just the Teen Titans, along with Thunder, I believe, or maybe it was Lightning. No, it was Lightning. Along with Lightning, but he misses Skitter. And on this page here, Skitter there's a hand outreach to Skitter and says, come with me. Don't be afraid. We'll go to a better place. And just spoilers for the rest of the series, this is the last time Skitter ever appears. Some random hand says, hey, sorry you were left behind. Let's get out of here. And then they just leave her. She's just gone. I don't understand. Why would we introduce this character if it's just... All right. So anyway, Leash drops off the Teen Titans in front of the Legion and says like, hey, that other team's going to hurt you. So kill each other. And so they, despite the fact that both of them are good guys and both of them are whatever, they just start attacking each other. We get like team ups in power. Cassie's fighting Timberwolf. Gates is fighting Kid Flash. Chameleon Girl's fighting Bunker. And, it's just fun little scenes of them battling each other. And I say fun very liberally there. Until finally we cut back to Omen and Harvest and all them. And they're like, hey, both these teams are fighting just to fight. Like, they're not fighting to kill. So what's the point of this? And he's like, yeah, I guess that is a problem. Also, the last guy's name is Warblade. And he's like, all right, well, time to start up the culling for real. Leash, get in there and do it. So Leash goes in. He grabs the rest of the teens from around the Crucible. And he drops them all off in a certain place, but not before he does something to their minds to make them have killer instincts and go against any sort of good they might have. And he drops them all off on top of the Teen Titans and the Legion. And Chapter 4 begins, and they say, Beast Boy, Garfield Logan, is red again for some reason. And he's using that killer instinct now to attack a couple different members. And it's just a general fight. Like, there's nothing that interesting going on. It's just the Legion and Teen Titans are like, I don't want to kill anybody. And they're like, cool, don't. And then they just don't. And then at one point, Artemis, who's still running around because she doesn't have any powers, she just has a spear, she gets attacked by Fist Point, who then kills her. And that's like first blood. She's the first and only one dead in this fight. And Red Robin swoops in and attacks Fist Point and says like, damn you, Harvest! We'll get you for this! We're coming for you! And then he's like, I'm sorry, Artemis. I don't really know Artemis outside of like TV show adaptations of her. Why'd you introduce her just to kill her? Can you like a fan favorite that you just, and now she's dead. Not a cool move, dude. Chapter 5, Teen Titans are now just trying to fend off the horde of mind-controlled teens, and immediately after he swore vengeance for Artemis, he says, no, we can't make this about revenge or else we'll lose focus. So, between this page to this page, he just forgets. And then we see that the Legion of Teen Titans, they're like, hey, look, in order to fight off these kids, we have to work together. Well, like it or not, we're part of a team now. And they're all working together. And they collectively fight off all the mind-controlled teenagers, and the culling has seemingly ended with only one life ended. Meanwhile, Harvest, he's laughing his ass off, just screaming into the void of like, I knew this would happen, and that because I've lived through it all, because I am from the future, and no matter what, my future is going to begin here. Omen, Warblade, go and reap the dark mines that they have sown. And then we see, again, the two teams are shaking hands, and they're like, we did pretty good. Are you actually from the future? And Legion's like, yeah, we are. Are you actually a Teen Titans? Because in our history books, you shouldn't be around for another 40 years. And Kid Flash is like, yeah, this is great and all, but maybe we should get out of here before more trouble arrives. And then wouldn't you know it, more trouble arrives with the Ravagers team, a.k.a. Harvest's specific handpicked team, has arrived and are here to attack. Don't miss part 2 in Superboy number 9. It's whatever. The Brett Booth art is not good. It's not, but it never has been. So that's nothing new. It's nothing surprising there. I at least followed the story. I didn't like the story being told, but I at least followed of here's A to B to C to D. Funny thing is in the back half, or in the back of this issue, it actually shows like full-on concepts of like, okay, we know we didn't explain the Crucible at all, so here's a breakdown of like a map of where everything is, and here's like what it means, and here's some other characters that you literally haven't even seen yet, like Windshear and Bright Eyes. And I'm like, guys, I shouldn't need an almanac to tell me everything I need to know about this book. So no, it's just not good. It's not a good start to the thing. This whole issue was just, okay, the teams fight and then they get together on the same side. That's standard. I'm fine with that. I just don't like everything else. The Artemis thing, the fact that it's just wasting so much of its time doing nothing at all. Like, it's broken down into 5 chapters, none of which are interesting. And they're throwing a billion characters that, like, any of the series could have spent time introducing. But instead they're like, no, this issue we're going to introduce Artemis, Thunder, and Lightning. And then we're going to kill one, because screw you. I give this a 4. And the only reason that it gets even that high is because it's part 1 of the event, and I'm willing to give it a little bit of leeway that it might improve a tiny bit. That's not a lot, but at least a little. So yeah, check out part 2 on Superboy number 9. Or don't. I wish I couldn't, but hey, can't all get what we want. Detective Comics number 9, written and art by Tony S. Daniels. This is a tie-in to Night of the Owls, and this one focuses on Jeremiah Arkham, who, of course, is the lead doctor at Arkham Asylum. So we pick up outside of Arkham Island, where I guess some cops are trying to get over to Arkham Asylum, but the drawbridge refuses to go down because the whole island's on lockdown because of the threats against Arkham's life by the Talons. So the cops just sit around drinking, wasting the time, when something bounces off the hood. And to be fair, I don't think we ever find out what does bounce off the hood. I'm guessing it was a Talon, but they never clarified. So anyway, then we go into the asylum, and it's just Jeremiah going on and on about how Arkham is such an awesome place. It does so much to help the victims of society, and it's also super duper secure, so there's like no need to ever worry about anything. But meanwhile, the security guards around him are like, yeah, but like there's a hit against your life by some highly trained assassins, so maybe you should go into a safe room. And he's like, pshaw, all of Arkham is a safe room. Just look at our menagerie of characters we have here. We have Steel Jacket, Fright, Clayface, Nocturna, all of them victims, and all of them at least on the list of characters. But then he gets a message that a certain prisoner or patient is going to end their hunger strike now because Black Mask was separated from his mask, so Roman Sionis. And so Arkham goes and talks to Roman and is like, hey, I hear you wanna be good now. And he's like, yes, totally. But maybe, just maybe, you could give me my mask. And he's like, no. I used your mask before, which I guess happened at some point in previous continuity, and they're just rolling with it. He's like, I used your mask before, and it's a naughty, naughty thing, so you're not getting it back. And as he's talking to Roman, he sees Roman looking behind him, which causes Dr. Arkham to use like a taser, just flip around and immediately tase whoever's behind him. And it's the Talon. So then Talons are like, oh, Jeremiah Arkham, we sentence you to die. And of course, Batman busts in and tells Arkham to run. He's pissed off that Batman's here at all because, you know, Batman beats up all of his poor little victims or patients, whatever you want to call them. But he tells Arkham, look, I know there's a whole bunch of like secret tunnels out of here. Go find one and get in it. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just gonna go this way. So he runs his way down the hall, and he meets up with some security guards who also get attacked by some Talons. There are like 3 or 4 Talons here. But he makes his way down some halls, and he's like, okay, the only way that I'm going to be able to survive this, because Batman is definitely going to fail, like, he sucks so hard. The only way I'm going to be able to survive this is if I get back to Roman and give him his mask. So he does so. He goes back into Roman's cell, and he's like, hey, look, I will work with you and get you everything you need, but you need to do this for me, which is use your mind control mask powers to tell every intruder in Arkham, or tell every patient in Arkham to attack the intruders. Okay? Got it? Go. So he does so. And as such, like, all the inmates are let out of their cells. Clayface is attacking all the other D-listers we saw before. And Batman's like, okay, for some reason they're attacking the Talons, but not me. I'm not going to waste this opportunity, though. So he just gets out of sight of a locked door, closes it behind him, and leaves the Talons to the inmates. To which he then sees that Black Mask is controlling them. And he starts trying to control Batman as well. And Batman's like, hey, that only works on the weak-minded. Boom, punches him out. So then we see Arkham looking over the security monitors at the Talons, still pretty much handily taking care of almost all the inmates. Like, they're still kind of outclassing all of them. But he drops in some sleeping gas to hopefully overcome the entire crowd, including the Talons. Meanwhile, there's a pounding at his door. We see it's a Talon trying to break in. The door comes down, and who is it but Batman, who's taking out the Talon. And he's like, hey, I put back Black Mask. You're welcome. And then he goes to grab Arkham, and he's like, you can't take me. I have rights. And he's like, shut up. And knocks Arkham out, takes him out on the Batmobile. They jump over the drawbridge. And eventually he gets on a call with Nightwing saying like, hey, can someone come here and pick up Arkham? Because I have to go do stuff in my own book. Please see Batman #9 coming out next week. And he's like, yeah, sure, I can come pick him up. Are you good? And he's like, yeah. I just need to go find the Birds of Prey, which I guess may also be in the Birds of Prey book. And then I got to go find Lincoln March. So that's it. Ends on him driving into Gotham. It's fine. It's a good enough tie-in. I mean, it's weird because Batman is so clearly busy in his own book. Like, I don't know how they're going to explain away that, like, no, I totally had time to just very quickly run over to Arkham Asylum, take care of a couple Talons, and then run back and do my own thing. I'm assuming they will because they very specifically have tied it in to say, hey, this is where this is going to happen in Batman 9. So I'm interested to see. But regardless, this one's fine. Art is pretty good across. My only real complaint is that it's a Jeremiah Arkham book first. And that's not inherently a bad thing, but at least in this, he's not interesting. He's just like, oh, Batman, can't you see all these people are victims of society or whatever? And like, yeah, but like, what's the point you're making here? Like, it doesn't, because even at the end with the Black Mask stuff, he realizes, like, no, Black Mask is a criminal. Like, he's just bad. Roman may be a victim, but Black Mask is bad, but he still sides with him. So I guess he's kind of a bad guy. I don't know. Overall, decent book, though. I would go ahead and give it a 6.5. Yeah, I honestly, it just seems like a weird tie-in for this. Like, the talents justify his being targeted as for helping villains, and therefore he must die, but I don't know. It seems weak. I don't feel like this one needed to tie in, but if they're going to hit all the Bat books, yeah, whatever. Batwing #9, written by Judd, Winick, art by Marcus Toe. We have a tie-in to Night of the Owls, and this one deals with Lucius Fox being protected by Batwing. So, open up 1856, Gotham City. Court of Owls are sitting around talking, and they're talking about their current Talon named Alexander Staunton, who apparently one of them wants to retire because while he is very good at killing people, he is also not at all stealthy. He just walks in, kills the person he's meant to kill, kills everybody who sees that, kills everybody who sees him killing the people who see the first one, and it just kind of ripples out until there's nobody left. And the other Court of Owls members are like, oh, but he's so efficient, he's so good. All right, fine, I guess we can put him on ice until he's needed at a later date. Cut to a later date, it is the Night of the Owls at 4:30. We have David, a.k.a. Batwing, and Mateus talking to Lucius Fox about the Batwing suit and how Lucius wants to give it more armor, but David says that Batwing, some other guy, definitely not him, wants to keep it light and airy so he can, fight better. It's not supposed to be a tank. It's supposed to just be some armor. So Lucius invites them to a gala going on that night for Batman Incorporated. of which Batwing is a member, and all of the member nations will be there. And David's like, I really don't want to, but then Mateus like, oh, we will be glad to join. Cut to one of the Court of Owls members sending the Talons out on the town and take back our city, blah, blah, blah. And then we get Night of the Owl, 6 o'clock, at the gala. David's very uncomfortable being in such lavish luxury at this gala, considering how he was brought up. But he's got some girls staring at him, and Mateus is like, maybe you could have some fun tonight, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But they're interrupted by, I believe it's the prime minister of one of their African countries. I don't know if it's actually the one that they are in, but it's an African prime minister. And he comes up, he's like, well, glad to meet you. Batwing, you're on Team Batwing, aren't you? He's done wonders for our country, and I'm so happy to have him. And then Lucius interrupts and sends the prime minister somewhere else because David is literally about to punch him in the face. And when he starts explaining himself, he's like, that guy is practically a warlord with how many people he's killed. Like, he is awful. And Lucius is like, hey, don't get me wrong. I hate him too. He's a dick. But he has stabilized the region, and the United States has backed him. So sometimes we have to do some compromises for the greater good here. Meanwhile, a match is lit, and everyone smells smoke, and we see a huge fire erupting from the kitchen, and it's like just in total inferno. So David tells Matu, clear out the place. I'm going to go see if there's anybody who needs help in there. But as he busts into the kitchen, he's like, man, this fire, if someone was trying to just light a fire in here, it's pretty bad. Like, there's no way they'd get away with it. But then as he enters, he sees just a slew of bodies on the ground, all slashed open. He's like, oh, this was a distraction. I need to get my armor on now. So he runs out to do it. Meanwhile, Matu gets the call from Alfred saying, hey, everybody, the Talons are attacking. Here's a list of people. Please help. And Matu's like, oh, Lucius is on that list. Hey, Lucius. Meanwhile, Lucius is starting to be escorted out by his own security. But a Talon, Alexander Staunton, of course, stabs the security through the chest. And he's like, hey, Lucius, you're going to die. Meanwhile, then Batwing shows up. And he tries Matu tries telling Batwing how the Talons work. Like, regenerative and whatever. But he's kind of distracted and keeps on interrupting him. So, like, he shoots him with, 5 tranq darts. And he's like, that would take down a rhino, no problem. But then the Talon just gets back up again and starts slashing at him. And then he breaks the Talon's arm, and then he just sees it immediately reset it. And he's like, oh, regeneration. Got it. And he's like, Matu's over the line. He's like, yeah, I've been trying to tell you that this entire time. The only thing that's going to stop it is if you put it in extreme cold or you cause massive tissue loss. So as the Talon is about to attack Lucius, Batwing tackles it out of the building, through out a window, down onto the ground below, because they're up on a pretty top floor. And everyone who's been evacuating the building is now reaching the bottom where now the fight is. And so the Talon grabs the African prime minister, and he's like, all right, bring me Lucius Fox, or I'm going to take this guy's head. And Batwing's like, I don't have a problem with this. I think this is a fair trade. But Lucius steps up, and he's like, don't hurt anybody, I volunteer. And as the Talon is about to kill Lucius, Batwing remarks that advice that Batman gave him of, if you see an end to the fight, no matter what it is, take it. And so he shoots some anti-tank missiles into the Talon's arms, and they just pop off. Just straight up, he loses his arms. So at that point, the Talon goes down, he binds it up, and he's like, I really hope that he isn't going to regrow his arms before I get this thing over to the Batcave. Then the Prime Minister steps up to Batwing, and he's like, oh, Batwing, I'm so proud to have you as the representative of my country. You saved us all. Huzzah for Batwing. And Batwing just looks at him, elbows him in the face, and tells Lucius that's how we compromise in Africa. May as well with a mic drop at the end. And that's it. That's the tie-in. I think this is solid. I think it shows who, if people are just reading this for the tie-in aspect rather than following Batwing as a whole, I think this does a good job of showing who Batwing is and how he acts. I think art is maybe, it's okay. It's not great. I'm still spoiled by the first volume of Batwing's art, and I don't think it's ever really going to get back to that level again. So, but it's fine. It's fine art. Writing wise, it does feel a little bit weird that Mateus is explaining these things, and then we have Batwing understanding them himself, but like separate from Mateus. It's just kind of, I feel like it's more to just show, yeah, he's serious. Like when we said regenerative powers, yeah, like we didn't have to go through the thing of showing it, but for some reason they were like, no, showing is better than telling, but we're still going to tell anyway. So overall, I would go ahead and give this one I give it a 6. It's okay. It's not fantastic. It does feel a little bit out of place in some spots, but it's fine. So 6 for this. Action Comics number 9, written by Grant Morrison, art by Gene Ha. This is a dense one. We have the introduction of the Superman of Earth 23, aka Calvin Ellis, President Superman. So this issue picks up with the Superman fighting Lex Luthor in one of his war suits, and he's like, why are you really that prejudiced against me, Lex? And Lex is like, I don't know, I'm not racist, okay? I'm not racist. I just hate everything else about you except for your race. That's the only thing. So Superman's like, okay, look, I beat you fair and square or whatever, but you barely even put up a fight, so what were you trying to protect over here? And he goes inside of one of Lex's buildings and sees this giant red and green cube, and he calls up his Brainiac link, and he's like, okay, something about, it's some sort of musical meta machine that's doing something, and it's getting louder, and all of a sudden a portal opens up, and a woman wearing an eye patch and 2 flaming bodies come out, and the woman's like, where are we? Are we back? Are we here? And as she sees the Superman crest on Calvin's chest, she opens fire on him, and it doesn't do anything. It just bounces off of him. And he's like, she's like, oh, you're immune to K-laser. And he's like, it's a hate-powered weapon that is set to deal with some other guy. Isn't that right, Clark? And she looks behind her at the 2, like, on fire bodies, and apparently that was Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen of wherever this woman came from, and they are just dead or dying at the very least, because Clark is still clinging on. Superman's like, look, I have no idea what's going on here, but I'm willing to help you if you just want to tell me what's going on. And she's like, we just proved that there's more than one planet Earth, and there's a bunch of like different Supermen on them. What makes you so different than them? And then we get Calvin's backstory of, you know, Krypton, Doom Planet, whatever. There was Jor-El and Lara who went to send their only son on the planet. In this version, they are black. That's, as far as I can tell, the only major difference here. But they send them to planet Earth, who then they are picked up by a kindly poor couple out on, I believe, a farm. And then he grows up and becomes Calvin Ellis, aka President Superman. And that's basically the gist of it. But then we get this woman's story, and just they make it a reveal at the end, but just for the sake of this, it's Lois Lane of her planet. And they come from a planet where Clark went out and he learned about like you being able to create things out of vibrations and thought. So the 3 of them, Jimmy, Lois, and Clark, work together to make a machine that is able to just create stuff out of thoughts and vibrations, sound vibrations. And they're like, we can just make whatever we want. And at some point, they decided to come up with the thought of a redeemer of their world called Superman. And he spit out some incredible ideas on how to fix the world, but he wasn't stable, so he disappeared. And because of something, they weren't able to remember any of his things that he said, so they know they needed more funding. They went to a business guy in order to get that. And I'm pretty sure he's the same dude who's been in like all the previous issues of Actions, the small diminutive man. He's in charge of Overcorp. I don't know, but basically they say like, all right, here's the deal. Yeah, we'll help you, and it's all about the money. Like, we're going to be able to do great things with the Superman brand. And they're like, that's not what it's about, so no, we turn you down. But then they go out to the bar and they talk about it for a while, and they like, did we really have a choice? Like, it could better the world. So they go back, they accept the deal, and then we see how she's so upset that they just sold out. and they gave up harmony and all this stuff so that the company's version of Superman would be the most brand recognizable one, where he's a tragic, I want to see if I can remember this, a faceless, violent, troubled anti-hero concealing a tragic secret life, a global marketing icon. And we see that in this world, the idea of the Superman brand is just everywhere. It's just an advertising campaign for the most part. But there is an actual real Superman who's powered by thought, and he's been going through these different universes because he's chasing down Lois, Clark, and Jimmy, and is killing these different Superman that were in these worlds that they jumped to. First was a one called Optiman, and then was Chibi Superman on the Chibi planet. But as the Superman starts coming through, Calvin's like, all right, let me deal with it. But as he's doing so, he gets a call from his chief of staff saying how there's a hostage situation in Libya that's erupting right now. So he gets Brainiac online, tells it to deploy a decoy Calvin Elvis, and then lets Brainiac handle the whole presidential thing while he's fighting this corporation Superman. So we get the brief fight scene between Superman and them, but then we cut over to the Libya thing where basically Brainiac's just like, here's how we can perfectly deal with the situation. We'll call on these favors and then these people will help us. And everyone's just like, you're so smart, President Ellis. We cut back to the fight, and again, he's holding up his own, but the Overcorp Superman is genuinely a difficult threat to deal with. Lois tries to jump in the way to stop him from killing Calvis, but then Lex Luthor shows up and says, 2 Supermen? This will not do. And he starts shooting at the brand Superman, seemingly taking it down for a while, because he wants to be the one that kills the real Superman, or at least his real Superman. So at that point, Calvin's finally able to get the upper hand. He hits a few good hits because of how he was raised by his parents, and then shoves the Superman back in through the portal machine, the big cube. And then as he's shoving him through, he turns it off. So therefore, he wasn't actually sent to any world. He's just caught in the in-between wavelengths between worlds. And yeah, he did it. So then we cut over, Superman's leaving the building. The Justice League has arrived on this planet. They're all black, except maybe Batman. And he's like, yeah, I guess I don't really need the Justice League after all, but something weird happened, and you're going to want to see this. And he goes in, and he gives his last respects to Clark Kent, who died on this Earth. And he says, look, I don't know what's happening. I feel like it's some amount of this psychotic breakdown, but you're a survivor. We have something in common. Why don't you, come with me? By the way, what's your name? Lois Lane. And we see the Justice League investigating the big cube thing in the back. There's also a backup story to this, but I'll deal with that on week 5 when we get to it. Dear Lord, this threw out everything. This is here's the multiverse, here's 4 different Superman, here's this one's origin, here's a different one's Lois Lane. This threw out everything. And it was good. It was definitely a solid issue all throughout. My only thing is, much like the Legion issues that were in, I think, issues 5 and 6 of this, maybe 6 and 7, it just comes out of nowhere and it just throws everything at you. And I don't have a problem with that for this one because I at least understand it better than I did the Legion thing, whatever it was trying to do there. It's something, man. It is a lot of heady concepts and it's just throwing exposition at you constantly. But it does still tell the story. So I definitely think it's a very well done issue. Art is pretty good throughout. It's nothing super standout, but it is still decent. And I really do feel like just in this brief issue, I get an idea as to who Calvin Ellis is. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this one I'm going to say 8.5. It's between that and the 8. So 8.5 I'm going to go ahead and go with. And it's a solid intro to a brand new character that to this day still continues on. So definitely a good start to a good character. Red Lanterns number 9, written by Peter Milligan, art by Tomas Giorello. This issue, last issue we left off with Atrocitus finding out that the central power battery to the Red Lantern Corps has been poisoned by one of his old experiments. And this issue picks up pretty much just doing the exact same thing for the whole issue. So we meet up with Bleez and them on some random ass planet where they're attacking a bunch of people who apparently deserve it. And then Bleez explains just the whole thing of like, oh, the Red Lantern power battery, it gives us our central rays and blah, 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 blah. As if explaining it to the people that she's attacking, but like it's just for our sake. And then basically Bleez just makes officially says like, you know what, I made this little split off that follows me. Now we're going to go back and we're going to take the entire Red Lantern Corps from Atrocitus. It will be mine. Bleez's Red Lanterns. Ha ha ha. Then we cut over to Yzmolt, where the other Red Lanterns and Jack, who is now saying that he has to stop being Jack and is now Rancor. Okay. They're facing off against each other because pretty much all the Red Lanterns think that Rancor is the one who's causing all these issues because he showed up as the issue started. But Rancor makes a construct out of his Red Lantern ring, which I forget this guy's name. He's the round orb one. Zilius Zox, that's it. He's like, Red Lanterns don't do that. We don't make constructs. What in the heck are you, man? But then Atrocitus shows up and he's like, hey everyone, stop your fighting. This is more important. Somebody poisoned our central power battery. And Zilius is like, yeah, it's this guy. Clearly it has to be him. And he's like, no, it's not him, you dumbass. No, it was one of my old things. He's the one who attacked us. Abysmus, that was his name. Abysmus is the one who attacked us. And then all of a sudden he notices there's some pink napalm on his shoulder. And he's like, ah, crap, that's Bleez, isn't it? And Bleez is up above being like, hey, it's me. I'm here to take your core. Anybody who wants to join me willingly, step over now. And then they just get into a big-ass fight because that's what rage monsters do. And throughout the fight, Rancor's like able to hear this drum beat over and over again that's like getting louder and louder. And then he realizes, oh, wait a minute, that's not a drum beat. That's my heart. It feels like it's going to explode. And he just marvels at Atrocitus' ability to continue fighting, despite the fact he literally had a spear through his chest earlier and is still going at it. But then throughout the fight, Rancor just yells for everybody, stop it, everyone stop it. And as he's doing so, the planet starts like exploding a little bit at them. And then everyone realizes, okay, hold on. Yeah, we kind of need to leave the planet and do some stuff because this is not good. And everyone's like, Rancor, why are you able to talk? Did he dip in the blood? Why are you so special, Rancor? And then Bleez learns about what happened to the power battery, and pretty much everyone's on the same page here of gawking at it. Meanwhile, Rancor steps away, and he's like, okay, I just need to take this ring off, because this is getting to be a bit much for me. I don't even know why I came here, so I'm just going to go ahead and take it off. And as he starts to take it off, he feels this like intense amount of pain, and he realizes that this ring is literally keeping him alive. There is no way to remove it. And even if he did take it off, he'd be stranded on this planet. So he's like, all right, I guess I got to work with the monsters over there. And he looks up and sees one of the Red Lanterns is already succumbing to this poison that's feeding throughout the central power battery and spreading to their individual rings. And since they can't take it off, yeah, they got to figure out a cure for it. So then we cut over to Abysmus, who's on, it seems like Earth, but it's not. It's a snowy planet that has what seems like humans, but they're not. They're aliens. And he's basically just trying to take over the planet to have a new place to live. And he's like, Abysmus, I'm so sad because Atrocitus killed me because I had feelings. He wanted a slave, a monstrous, mindless slave, but I had feelings. And now I will destroy the power battery because of that. That's his whole justification. So anyway, then Atrocitus, he steps up and he's like, all right, look, clearly we have some different issues, but this is the thing that needs to be solved immediately or else we all will die. We need to leave the planet, we need to go find Abysmus, and we need to kill him. And they bounced through a couple things of like, well, maybe it wasn't a business, maybe it was Sinestro. It's like, no, it was a business. Shut up, Zilius. And at a certain point, Bleeze gets in her head of like, no. Somebody, well, everyone says that Abysmus is too stupid to do this on his own. Clearly somebody must have given him the poison. And Bleeze thinks that it was the Star Sapphires, aka the Violet Lanterns, because she's been doing her own thing in New Guardians and met them, I guess. So Bleeze is going off to find the Star Sapphires, and Atrocitus is going off to find Abysmus. And they realize that they have to do this or else the Red Lanterns will all die, so we will be avenged. And that's where the issue ends. Picks up apparently in Stormwatch, which Stormwatch number 9 came out the same week, and it kind of does a little bit tie in. Yeah, it's an issue that accomplishes pretty much two things. One, it shows the ring cannot be removed to our human player. And two, it just sets up of, okay, the power battery's gone, now we have to fix it. And everything else in between is just kind of like, yeah, okay, why not? Because, like, how many times do I need to see Bleeze and Atrocitus fighting? Like, I get it. They're too... But, like, every single time they start fighting, something comes up that's like, oh, this is a bigger deal than our fight right now. And I'm getting a little bit tired of it. It's just a little bit too much. So overall, the art was very good in this issue. I definitely do appreciate a lot of it. I think the aliens look better than Rancor does. He's a bit, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm expecting human faces and he gets a little bit grotesque at times. But then again, he's hardly human anymore. Personal little nitpicks. But I'm going to give this one a 6.5. I think it's pretty good overall. Not great. And honestly, the reveal at the end of, see Stormwatch, I'm like, why? What does that have to do with anything? But hey, they're on the cover, so I guess something's got to be there. Earth 2, Issue 1, written by James Robinson, art by Nicola Scott. This is a parallel Earth that is going on at the same time as our own Earth 0. What happened to Earth 1? It's its own thing. Anyway, this is the story, this is basically the backstory to setting up the series as a whole. So, remember when Darkseid invaded the mainline continuity in Justice Leagues 1 through 6? Turns out he did that on Earth 2 as well, but instead of Darkseid, Steppenwolf was the one who's leading the army of parademons, and he was doing a real good job at it, because Earth apparently resulted in this whole war called the Apocalypse War, and Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were pretty much some of the only, like, heroes that were left to stop it. So we get this narration throughout the whole thing saying, like, the war had been long fought, so many people died, blah, 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 but this was the final battle here in Metropolis to take down the army, and none of the heroes would survive this day. So we see just fight scene, and basically Superman and Wonder Woman are trying to keep the crowds of parademons away via brute strength, where Batman can make his way to a central tower that is seemingly controlling the parademons. So it's just extended fight scenes saying like, Superman's, and apparently at some point in this Lois died, a very senseless death at the hands of these parademons, which really pissed Superman off. And Wonder Woman's lost all of her Amazonian sisters, so everyone's a little bit sad about this. So Batman makes his way over to the tower, and some parademons start flying after him. And Robin comes in the Batplane, and this Robin is actually his daughter with Catwoman, aka Helena, and she's coming in, shooting down all the parademons and keeping track of her dad. Meanwhile, we cut over to Kara, aka Supergirl, who is in New Guinea, watching over a tank convoy that is trying to deliver a nuclear weapon to another one of those towers, which are spotted just literally all over the planet. And she's just making sure that it's not attacked. There's also a whole army platoon here, along with one short sergeant named Al Pratt. And someone makes a little jab at him, and he's like, "You want to go? I'm alert. I'm doing my job. What do you want?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Sergeant." And he's like, "Yeah, all right, whatever." I bring that up because it seems like it's going to bring it up, but not in this issue. So the fight continues on, and then we get a flashback to what the plan actually is. And it turns out that these towers do control all the parademons, but every time they knock one of them down, the control of those parademons just gets shifted to another tower, and then the next, like, there's just more towers built, like, every day. So there's no way to really take out all the towers and stop all the parademons. But Batman reasons that if he could just upload a computer virus into it, when they knock down the tower, it'll transfer all the data over into the next one, including the virus, which will then kill that tower, and it'll just ripple its way out across the entire world, and all the parademons will die. So that's what the plan is, and the fight continues on. Wonder Woman is visited by the god Mercury, who comes in and says, like, hey, you prayed for the gods to help you, and we totally did. But a lot of us died. In fact, I'm pretty much one of the last gods here. Just wanted to stop in and tell you that you don't really have any gods left. Okay, bye. And so Wonder Woman's now super angry, like, oh, now I am fighting for my sisters and my gods. Bring it. And she starts slashing at some parademons. Meanwhile, Steppenwolf comes out through a boom tube, and Superman, he tries to get Wonder Woman's attention, but he's being held back by hordes of parademons. And Steppenwolf sneaks up behind her, takes a giant spear thing, and shoves it straight through Wonder Woman's chest. So, the end of Wonder Woman. And then it seems like Superman also gets disintegrated. Maybe. It's a bit unclear. There's just a big explosion, and he's no longer there. So, yeah. Anyway, at that point, Supergirl realizes he's gone offline. She zooms back over to the Metropolis, and all of the people in the army platoon are left to fend for themselves against the horde of parademons. So they just start firing, and they're like, well, we'll do it if we die trying. Finally, we cut to Batman, who's finally inside the tower. He's taking care of as many parademons as he can while Robin's covering the outside. And Batman tells her, like, hey, I'm here, I'm doing it. I'm going to have to launch the self-destruct while I'm in here. This is my last thing. And she's like, no, don't. What? And they just have that moment where it's like, this is the only way. I have to do this. And she's like, no, Dad, please. And he's like, just, I love you, my daughter. Goodbye. And so he detonates the tower, and it goes off pretty much without a hitch. It all starts, all the parademons start dropping out of the sky. The towers start disintegrating. But there's a boom tube appearing somewhere in there, and it seems like there is someone inside of it. And the only people there to witness this are Robin and Supergirl, who then immediately just crash into the portal as best they can and disappear into the pages of World's Finest #1, which also came out this same week. But regardless, the person who was narrating this whole time was Alan Scott, a TV personality and owner of GBC, who is basically making a documentary for the anniversary of their great sacrifice as heroes. And he's rewatching over the cut of it, and he's like, you know, I'm glad I did this, but I'm glad people don't see me as just some raving maniac who's in love with the sound of his own voice. I'm able to do something like this and distribute it for free, despite the fact that that's costing me so much money as CEO of this big company. And anyway, they're flying over to, I'm not even sure if it says to where, but they are currently over Italy. And as they look out the window, him and a flight attendant, they see these giant smoldering craters of where the towers were. And they say, like, yeah, these things are never going to heal because the Earth doesn't want us to forget. And then just forget all that. We cut over to Lansing, Michigan, where a girl is breaking up with her college boyfriend, saying how he's a loser and he's never really done anything with his life. And she's going to be doing great things, and she just can't be around him anymore, so this is it. And she drives off, leaving him alone. And so later that night, he's sitting up on a hillside, looking over the city, having a beer, and he's like, maybe I am a loser. Maybe me, Jay Garrick, is a loser. And then we see a star come out of the sky, but it turns out it's not actually a star, it's a meteorite. And it crashes into the ground right next to Jay. He walks over to the crater, and it turns out it's not even a meteorite. It's actually Mercury, the god from before. He's back, and he's like, okay, here's the thing. I'm done. There's a great evil coming, and Earth needs a new hero. Guess what you are? And that's where the issue ends. Solid first issue, very solid. Sets up that this Earth is an Earth without the Justice League. The Justice League died here, so it's how do these new heroes step in? We're going to have, I assume, Jay Garrick has historically been the Flash. Alan Scott's historically been the Green Lantern. So I'm curious to see how those things filter in. And art-wise, very good throughout. A bit basic at times, but it gets the point across, and I'm always able to follow the action. So yeah, no, it's good, solid work all throughout, introducing a big new concept of here's just a totally different Earth. It's just a different timeline moving next to our own. So yeah, I'm interested in it. Overall, I give this one an 8. I think it's a good start to the series. Hopefully, you can keep up the momentum. I know that Earth 2, as a line, pretty much goes till the end of the New 52, so we're in it for the long run with this one. Let's see how it goes. World's Finest #1, written by Paul Levitz, art by George Perez and Kevin Maguire. Prerequisite reading, pretty much necessary, is Earth 2 #1, and also maybe Huntress as a series. But regardless, this is following Supergirl and Robin of Earth 2, who have now become Huntress, and I don't think she actually has a name in this yet, but it's Power Girl, are now on Earth 1. And here's the story of how we got there. So we open up in Tokyo, where Helena Bertinelli is burning a passport, and it turns out that Helena Bertinelli wasn't actually her name at all. It was a dead woman who she simply took the passport for, and now she has to pick a new identity for who she wants to be. And she's sitting across the table from Karen Starr, and this is Robin and Supergirl, and they're just talking about, like, man, how difficult it is to live our lives as they sit in this upscale restaurant, because Karen, as it turns out, is CEO of, like, Star Labs. No, not Star Labs. Star something Industries. But basically she's super rich, so she's just putting down the platinum card, throwing down some big money on dinner, when all of a sudden she gets a call from her lab, and she's like, oh no, that's awful. Come on, Helena, you got to come with me. And they rush out of the building and find out that Star Enterprises, that's the one, their laboratory here in Tokyo has literally burnt to the ground. And she runs in and she's like, is the quantum tunneler safe? And they're like, I don't know, maybe. And immediately she just runs into the building, and all the scientists are like, no, please don't. And so Helena storms in after her. And as soon as they get in, Helena throws on her Huntress gear, because why not? And she follows the holes in the walls left behind by Karen. And when she finally catches up, Karen is down in one of the sub-basements, and we discover that it was actually not like a lab accident or anything. Someone set off purposeful incendiaries. But yeah, Karen's like, okay, here's where it was. Here's where this cool thing was that I wanted to show you. It was a quantum tunneler made by Mr. Terrific. See the pages of Mr. Terrific. And it could have been our way back home. It could have been the way that we got back to Earth 2. And Karen looks around and realizes that somebody stole some radioactive material from the room. And Helena makes the off comment of, because she ran into a burning building wearing just a normal dinner dress, by the time she gets down there, her dress is in tatters. And she's like, if you're going to be doing this, you need to have an actual, like, costume, like an actual outfit. So maybe do that instead of running around in a tattered up dress. And then we get a flashback to 5 years ago on Earth 2, which is basically just straight out of the pages of Earth 2 #1, where a boom tube opened up and Supergirl and Helena just fly their way into it. And when they go through, Supergirl loses consciousness, Robin manages to stay awake, and when they come out the other side, they fall into the ocean. Robin pulls Supergirl up to safety, and then eventually Supergirl wakes back up, and they realize, okay, what just happened here? And Robin explains to Supergirl, our respective Justice League is dead, but we went through a portal, came through to a different Earth where they're just getting started. Like, Superman just showed up. So, yeah, it's a completely different thing. And then a month later, they're walking around. How are they going to be able to like survive in this world without any identities, any money, anything like that? And apparently Helena uses the fact that she knows Batman. She was Batman's daughter in the other Earth to bleed some money out of Wayne Enterprises, because I guess all Batmen think alike. And just it takes 5 years, but over the course of those 5 years, Karen manages to turn that money into becoming this big mystery mogul who just showed up out of nowhere, bought up all these technologies, and made millions and millions of dollars. Meanwhile, Helena turned into the Huntress and is more than happy to live in the shadows, attacking thugs and whatnot, one warehouse at a time. So, cut back to present, and Supergirl's like, oh yeah, here's the thing, you said I should get a costume. Turns out I actually do have a costume. So she names herself Power Girl. I guess that does happen in this issue. And she puts on the outfit, and they're like, oh, there's a rumbling upstairs. Do you hear that? Let's go check it out. So they both run upstairs. Of course, Helena's fallen behind because Power Girl is so much faster. But as she tries to catch up, she loses track of her. And then all of a sudden, Power Girl comes just blasting through a bunch of walls, having been thrown by something big. And they get ready to prep up for a fight, and we see that it is against a man named Haku, who is also known as the Irradiated Man. And he's probably the one who stole the radioactive materials. But regardless, the fight comes up next issue. So this threw up a lot of big things. The fact that you it explains enough on its own, but this comes out of more or less 3 different comics. As I said, Huntress and Earth 2, but also Mr. Terrific feeds into this a little bit as well, because Karen made appearances in that as well. So it definitely feels like a byproduct of the universe so far. But if I were just coming into this blind, I don't know how well this would read. It does seem like a lot of stuff is just like, oh yeah, if you read this, you would know about this. And I'm like, okay, but what if I didn't? This needs to be able to stand on its own as well. This is basically just the origin issue and just setting up some, like, here's how she becomes Power Girl. Here's how they got to the Earth. Here's what they did for their first month or two. Like, it's just an origin issue. And I'm sure we'll get more of that over the course of the whole arc. I imagine this entire first thing is going to be an origin arc, but there's not a whole lot going on right now. And in terms of big things, Irradiated Man doesn't really seem like that big of a thing to start off with. So, we'll see how it goes. Overall, I'm going to give it a 7. Just because it is playing with some good ideas. I like the idea of a completely stranded Robin and Supergirl from a different planet that are just having to do their own thing separate from everyone else. But they still crisscross from time to time with other books. I'm enjoying the concept. I'd like to see how the execution plays out over future issues. But as for this one, it was pretty much fine overall. Green Arrow number 9, written by Nocenti, art by Harvey, Tolibao. Last issues, I don't care. This issue picks up with Green Arrow and Skylark chilling out in a abandoned train station, and then a whole bunch of guns start firing through the windows, and then Green Arrow fires straight back out through the holes in the wall to hit whoever was shooting at them. And all the people were like natives of the land, and they're like, oh, sorry, we thought that you were what's his name? Big White, I think his name is, they call him. Yeah, Big White, which is just a name for Lear. And he's like, nope, wasn't me. And it's like, oh, well, you're riding his mount, so that's why we thought it was you. Anyway, we're cool now. And this entire time, I really want to preface that Ollie's playing up this old, like, Western thing. Like, he's flipping around his gun, or at least his arrows, and, like, putting them into the holster and spitting everywhere. It's just, oh, my God. Okay, so anyway, they're talking to him and basically just describing, like, oh, the world, because of his gold mining or whatever, he's taken our lands, and he's poisoning the land, and everything's dying. And Skylark faints at one point because apparently she can't be separated from her sisters for too long. So he's poisoning the land with, like, cyanide that makes it easier to mine the gold. And so he walks into this... he hears about this town that's down the way, and he's going to go in and he's going to basically see if he can find his pet polar bear, which the polar bear was the one he was battling last issue, and at no point did he take it as a pet, but regardless, he's going in trying to get the bear, which is tied up at the saloon downtown. Anyway, Lear is talking to his daughters, and he comes with the plan of, hey, one of my daughters, you're going to go and you're going to replace the one that's in love with Green Arrow, and you're going to trick him into a trap. And yep, that's a thing. And one of the other daughters like, what about me, Daddy? And he's like, you'll have your time. Spoiler, she never does. She never shows, like, it's just not even a thing. So anyway, Green Arrow makes it into town, and they see that they basically just had a thing where, hey, pay $1 and you get to get the bear drunk. And that's the way they're having fun with the bear. And so he walks into the saloon, and everyone's like, well, you're a strange face out here. Would you like some muskrat? And they're like, nah, I'll just have a beer. And then he does his spitting thing. And then the entire saloon's like, spitting is a hangable offense around here. What do you got to say for yourself? And so then they start fighting. And during the fight, Green Arrow's like, I'll stop kicking your asses, and I'll get you your guys' land back in return for that bear that you've been getting drunk. And they're like, really? Seriously? You'll get our land back? And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? I just want the bear. And so everyone drinks to that. Meanwhile, because Skylark's feeling bad, she takes a rest upstairs. Green Arrow goes downstairs, has a drink with some of the guys, and formulates his plan of how he's going to do this. Then the other Skylark comes in, injects a paralytic into the first Skylark that will make her see everything, not be able to move, but then forget it all later. What's the point of that? Just to give us the scene where Green Arrow comes upstairs, has sex with the imposter Skylark, and the real Skylark has to cry as she looks on at this. Okay, anyway, we then see that Naomi, his behind the chair girl from back in wherever the hell he's from, she's out looking for him, and she gets a heat signature, and is like, that must be Ollie over there. So then we cut to Green Arrow, who is currently going through some underground tunnels that the imposter Skylark told him to follow in order to get around without being seen. But of course, as he comes out of one of the hatches, Lear is there waiting along with the other two Skylarks, and Green Arrow's like, you've betrayed me. You told your father I'd be here. And she's like, I don't remember doing any of that. I don't remember anything from last night at all, even when you said I gave you a map to this place. That doesn't seem like me at all. And he's like, regardless, you betrayed me. Anyway, I'm kicking you off the mountain, Lear. And Lear's like, psh, good luck. So then they get into a fight scene, and Lear has the upper hand pretty much. But then the plan that Ollie had was he was just going to blow off some dynamite, and that was going to somehow do whatever they needed to do. And so the dynamite goes off, and Lear and the two Skylarks that were loyal to him go down into it looks actually like Lear goes down to a bunker and tells the two Skylarks, hey, come with me if you want to live. And they're like, but we'll be trapped down there. And he's like, this is your final test. And I guess they didn't pass because it looks like they're skiing down the mountain, outrunning the thing. And then Green Arrow grabs his original Skylark's hand and be like, I'll get you out of here, but then me and you go our separate ways because I can't trust you anymore. And then she jumps off and goes down into the hole where Lear was, and we just don't get anything else about that. And so the whole reason that he was able to get out was because Naomi was there with the helicopter, and he goes up in the helicopter, and Naomi's like, hey, are you good? And he's like, he stole my blood, and he was operating on animals, and he was a connoisseur. And he's like, oh, okay, you're a little bit crazy. Anyway, there's some big stuff going on back home you should probably know about, but let's get you patched up first. And Green Arrow's like, I've made some mistakes. I forgot my bear. This is gonna haunt me. That's it. That's it. And as far as I can tell, that is the end of this arc. Oh God. Okay. Not good. Why was the bear getting drunk? Why did we just blow up a little bit of this mountain and that's enough to just drive them away forever? Did he get the people their gold mine back? Why were they getting the bear drunk? Why did he all of a sudden, he knew there were two identical other Skylarks. Why did he not believe that could have happened? Why were they getting the bear drunk? It It's not good. That's the long and short of it. Art is okay if you like that style. I personally don't, so it was doing nothing for me. I give this one a 3. Oh, God, it was just... It's nonsensical from start to end. Like, nothing here made any sense at all. Why did he even go on this entire thing back 2 issues ago? Because he was not thinking with his big brain. But more to the point, like, there was no story reason. Oh, God. The sooner we can get to a different writer, the better. Because I'm so tired of this. Justice League International number 9, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Aaron Lopresti. Last issue we left off with Omac showing up and attacking Guy Gardner, August General, and Godiva. And this issue picks up with Godiva, who's basically just lying there like, I am so in over my head here. Like, this is way too much for me. I joined this thing because literally the Prince of Britain, UK, whatever you want to call it, had asked me personally, but this is too much. And we see Omac just smashing down August General into the pavement. And of course, big fight scene breaks out, and Omac is consistently asking for Batman. He's like, hey, I need Batman. I saw him on the TV. He was helping here. Where is he? And they're like, you want Batman? You got to deal with us. And they start attacking him. And then we cut over to, well, I guess I should say, as Omac gets hit by Guy Gardner's construct, he's like, all right, you guys are no help. I'm out. And he just jumps away. Cut over moments earlier to Batman, Batwing, and Booster, all just talking about how there's some big operation that is having bombings everywhere, like at the Hall of Justice at the United Nations. Like, clearly something big's going on. And so Booster calls up Skeets, who's doing a bunch of analyzing, and they realize that as this is going on right now, over in Paris, there's yet another bombing, which actually happened in Fury of Firestorm number 8, which this is going to be crossing over with next issue, so it's, I guess, required reading. Anyway, he's like, oh, something big's going on. Also, there's another energy spike, like, 3 streets over that way, so maybe you should go check that out. And everyone gets up and they go after Omac, who's still leaping around town. And as everyone converges on Omac, of course Batman's there. And he's like, Batman, you're here. Oh, thank God. I need the Batman. And he just like throws other people out of his way to get to him. And of course that doesn't go too well. But as they keep on trying to fight him, Omac gets super angry. He like punches the ground, causes huge ripples in the pavement. And Omac is just unable to articulate the reasons why he needs to talk to Batman for some reason. But then Guy Gardner comes back in and he basically puts on Iron Man armor out of his green construct and he starts fighting against Omac one-on-one. And he's holding his own pretty decently. And then Batman's like, all right, look, we just got to get this situation off the streets and like under control. Batwing, can you go ahead and drop this on him? And he hands Batwing something. He's like, this is explosive? He's like, yeah, but it won't affect Omac. It's just going to affect the street underneath him. So Batwing drops the device. A hole opens in the pavement, and Omac drops into the sewers underneath. And Omac stands up. He's like, oh, I hate sewers. And they're like, all right, here we go. We're going to fight. And then Omac's like, wait, hold on. Maybe I can explain. And he explains, my name is Kevin Coe. I became Omac against my will. I have no way to change back. Technology that changed me, somehow Batman, you were a part of its creation. I was hoping you would know something in order to change me back. And they never actually touch on any of that. Like, maybe that's a future issue, but like, he just says that and then Batman doesn't even acknowledge it. So Godiva and August General show back up. They get down in the hole and Godiva's freaking out. She's like, great. We've had all these teammates injured. We had, like, a teammate die. Our entire team has been decommissioned, and now we're standing in sewer water. This is fantastic. And so she starts freaking out a little bit as Batwing and August General are pretty much like, hey, we're cool now? Has everybody met Batwing? Are we all good? Great, cool, awesome. So then Omak starts explaining why he was going into a frenzy, and he's like, sometimes I lose control, and I don't know why it happens either. That's why I need to change back. And so everyone's like, all right, well, all in favor of helping Omak? Yeah, cool. All right, well, maybe we'll try to help you. But right now, you are kind of a threat. But also right now, there's something going on at the Eiffel Tower that we need to deal with. So regardless of whether or not we can help you, you're coming with us so we can at least keep an eye on you. Okay, cool, here we go. So they all jump, well, okay, before that, we go to the villains, who are high above New York City, and apparently Intersec is using the radio waves to control Omak's emotions or whatever and make him angry. And that's why he was losing control. But when they went down the sewer and then left the city, she lost control of him. So then Lightweaver and whatever the hell the main guy's name is, I don't even think they say it. Anyway, they're all talking and they're like, the JLI has left, but no matter, we will move forward with our plan until we finally take them off the board completely. And then all of a sudden this dude just teleports in and they call him Crosscut. And he's complaining that they interrupted him getting to level 35 on Call of Honor. To which he then says, chillax. So they teleport out. Anyway, Godiva and the rest of the group are all in a Green Lantern-created jet that's flying at supersonic speeds over to Paris in order to deal with the Eiffel Tower situation. And Godiva's just talking like, man, when are we going to get some more in the loss of Rocket Red? And they're like, soon, but right now we got to do our job. So they arrive in Paris, and the events of Firestorm are still ongoing. So they arrive over there, and they're like, all right, everyone, be ready for anything. We don't know who's causing this. And then I think it's Booster points out, it's like, oh, maybe it's them, as the different firestorms from that issue all descend upon them. And yeah, that's that. I don't know if this picks up in Firestorm or if this picks up in the next issue of Justice League. I think the next issue of Justice League, but check out Firestorm anyway. This was fine. It was okay. Here's the thing. I knew as soon as they put Omak at the end of last issue that it was just going to be a misdirect of like, oh no, he's actually like fighting with them instead of fighting for it, because of the way that Omak, the series, ended. Like, I knew that was a thing. But I didn't expect it to take up 2/3 of this issue of them rectifying that. Like, I really dislike the idea that every single superhero comic has to have a fight in it. Like, even if it doesn't make any goddamn sense for there to be a fight. Especially with this, because Omak was the last one, and then the next one is Firestorm. All of these are heroes. We don't need to have the fights. Shouldn't this be the diplomatic team? Regardless, though, in terms of the story it was telling, it was fine. It wasn't blowing me away or anything like that. Didn't do any like big ideas or whatever. The biggest thing was that Batman had a hand in Omak, which, that has to be at least somewhat public knowledge, I guess. So I'm interested to see how that turns out whenever they end up dealing with it. But overall, this one I'm going to go ahead and I'll give it a 6. It's got a just Crosscut specifically just got to me, where it was like, oh, we're just introducing a fourth member to this villain group who was just playing video games, and he says chillax. All right, screw you. I'm done with that now. So yeah, 6 for this, and we'll see where we're going with Firestorm. GI Combat #1, written by J.T. Krul, art by Ariel Olivetti. I have a little bit of explaining to do on this one. So, Men of War was a comic that just ended, and more or less this is replacing it. But the way that comic was structured was it had a main story and then a backup story. The backup story was a significantly smaller portion of the book, and the main story was the main story. As such, I covered the main story when I was talking about the numbered issues, but the backup stories I saved for week 5s. This book is pretty much split right down the middle. There's a first story, which is The War That Time Forgot, and then there's a second story, which is The Unknown Soldier. It would be a disservice to both stories for me to try to cram both of them into my time talking about it. So I'm going to go ahead and classify The Unknown Soldier as a backup story and talk about it on week 5's, but just know that it's not really that short, and this is more or less an anthology of 2 different stories. So the numbered issues are going to be strictly talking about the War that Time Forgot. If you want to check out Unknown Soldier, check out every time that we have a week 5. So, ignoring all of that, getting into this, the War that Time Forgot, we have in the Sea of Japan what seems to be a military vessel, and a man who is not named in this issue, mind you, not because it's a secret. I think they just forgot to give him a speech bubble where his name shows up. But his name is Stevens. So Stevens is talking to his family, his daughter and wife, on a pretty much a Zoom call, and she's trying to get a little bit of information, just could you at least tell me where you are so I know you're safe or whatever? And of course he can't give up anything for military reasons. But then his friend Elliot, who's also a crewmate, shows up and is basically yeah, no, we're working hard out here or whatever. And they have some little playful banter about Elliot waiting until his daughter's grown up, which is very creepy because she's 1, but regardless. So they joke around for a little bit, showing that they're good with each other until finally the wife and daughter have to go. And then we start the story proper. And we get there's an issue in North Korea. For the past 48 hours, there's been activity. Or to be more specific, there's no activity because there's a giant just hole where no satellite imagery is working. So the Special Forces team is going to go in and they're going to get some answers as to what exactly is happening there. They're going in with helicopters. And as they do so, they see this giant-ass lightning storm that is filled to the brim with pterodactyls, just giant dinosaurs attacking them. And immediately, first response is they load up the miniguns and they start firing at these things. And they are doing a little bit of damage, but not enough to actually bring any of them down. So the pterodactyls start just destroying the helicopters and eating the men alive straight out of the air. The helicopter that has Elliot and Stevens is mercifully, I wouldn't say saved, but not completely destroyed, but it is knocked out of the air, and they crash down onto North Korean soil and black out for a little bit. Cut to the next morning, Stevens is getting out of the wreckage, and he sees Elliot is still alive, but pretty much everyone else has died, and they have to get to some level of safety somewhere. So they start making their way through the woods, and they genuinely don't know where they are. They know they were about 15 miles in when they attacked, but they just have to find a clearing and then start heading south so that they can get back to friendly land. But then they start hearing rumbling and gunfire and whatnot, and they think, oh, maybe that's an extraction team for us. Hopeful thinking. But as they go over the crest of the ridge, they look over and they see a whole bunch of North Korean tanks attacking pterodactyls, tyrannosaurus, stegosaurus, triceratops, just your general menagerie of dinosaurs. And that's it. That's where the issue ends. These are going to be very fast ones because I'm only really covering half an issue. But, okay. I mean, hell of a way to open it of just, hey, we're U.S. military and North Korea military versus a bunch of dinosaurs. Sure, why not? To be fair, the cover pretty much gives that away, but I'm still surprised by it, nonetheless. So, art is very good. It has this, it's got a painterly feel to it, but the only thing that I can really critique it for is that certain things, like when they're walking through the woods, definitely feel like they were just copy and pasted, forest.jpg. It doesn't feel like they actually drew that. If they did, it's very lifelike. It's very well done, but it feels like it's just a JPEG. So it kind of took me out of it just a little bit. But overall, it's an interesting start at the very least. It's just your general setup of the way all those trap behind enemy line movies go. The difference here being is that they're dinosaurs. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 6.5. You know what? No, I'll bump it up to a 7. A lot of that is the art, because the story is bare bones as it is right now. I'm sure we'll get more character development, more of what they actually have to do as things progress, but it's very basic of here's just the general premise, and next issue we can get into the more specific of it. So 7 for it right now, and hopefully it can continue. Stormwatch number 9, written by Peter Milligan, art by Miguel Sepulveda. Last issue was the end of the Gravity Miners little tiny arc. And this issue picks up with a new one called the Da Vinci Coda. And it opens up with Midnighter just beating up a whole heck of a lot of people, musing over the fact of, what happens when I like killing people too much? Like, does that make me a bad guy? But before we can really get that deep into it, turns out this was all just a holodeck thing. An engineer calls him into the main room to talk to him. And inside the main room, basically she lays down a tie-in to a Red Lanterns issue. Red Lanterns issue number 8, I believe, had one of them named Scalox make their way to Earth. And we don't know what happened to him in the main series. But in this book, she explains, like, hey, here's the deal. Green Lanterns exist. They like to think they're space cops. We laugh at them from our high chairs over here. But as it turns out, Green Lanterns also have Red Lanterns, and we sense the energy of the Red Lantern nearby. So I need you and Apollo to go down to Earth and deal with that. So they land in the UK, and they get to talking a little bit about Midnighter's problems, like, mentally. And before they get too deep into it, they say that Martian Manhunter, Jack Hawksmoor, and Jenny are all in Italy dealing with something else, so they're not going to have any backup. But we cut over to Italy to see why it's called Da Vinci Coda, and we have a dude who's just like expelling energy in the middle of one of the streets, and he looks like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man with like the different arms and legs and whatnot. And he apparently has like a force field or whatever around him in order to do whatever. But before they can really get into fighting, the guy starts talking and he's like, children? Really? We're doing children now in Stormwatch? And like, whoa, hold on. But you're talking like you're one of us. Do you know what's up with us? And it's like, yeah, fighting aliens and whatnot. I know what's up. And Engineer's like, okay, bring him to the ship because I want to know what's going on. And she's about to open up a door, but then Jenny's like, hey, one of my powers is dark matter, which I guess allows me to teleport things. So that's cool. And so Martian Manhunter blanks the mind of everybody who saw the fight. And then Jack starts talking to the city of Italy in order to start fixing it up. That happened. So then we cut over to Scalox, the Red Lantern, who's just beaming down to Earth as fast as possible. Apollo gets in his way, tells him, like, hey, you got to stop here. I need to know your business. And Scalox blasts some napalm into his eyes, which he, of course, does not take well. He starts throwing some random punches. He does finally connect one, which just beams Scalox down into the planet. He gets up, though, which impresses Midnighter, which then they get into a fight. As Apollo's trying to get the napalm out of his eyes by absorbing sunlight so that he can blast it out. Midnighter takes a pretty hefty punch to the stomach and is getting a pretty bad beating from Scalox, but before he can land the finishing blow into Midnighter's head, Midnighter rolls out of the way and takes a big-ass knife, and cuts off Scalox's arm that has his ring on it. He screams out in pain, falls to the ground, because Red Lanterns need their rings in order to survive. So that's a thing. But as he is down on the ground and Apollo's checking his heartbeat, he's like, it's not there. He's dying. And then Ninner's like, let me try something. And he just like reattaches his hand, like just holds it back up to it, which is enough to keep the blood going and like enough to keep him alive. So yeah, he's fine. And then Midnighter and Apollo flirt for a little bit because Midnighter's like, I'm so happy that napalm didn't mess with your eyes. It's your best feature. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So then Scalox is back in Stormwatch HQ. They're keeping him in stasis and trying to figure out what in the heck is going on with that ring. The ship comes up with the thing of, it's pure emotional rage. Like, that's what fuels it. And it has incredible powers. So, yeah, regardless, we cut over to the Vitruvian Man guy whose name is... I know they say it in here. I can't remember. Anyway, he's a guy who previously did work on Stormwatch way back in like the 16th century, like way back in the day. And he fell in love with a woman, and the Shadow Lords, who back then were called Dark Lords, that ran Stormwatch, they forbid it. And so he came home one day and he found the woman that he loved dead, and he knew that someone in Stormwatch had killed her. So he starts freaking out, having to relive this memory, and he starts expelling massive amounts of energy. And he's just so upset the fact that he wasn't allowed to love. He was in Stormwatch and he wasn't allowed to love anyone. And Jenny's like, wait, hold on, for real? Are we not allowed to do that? Like, nobody told me that part. And the rage that he feels over losing his beloved causes the Red Lantern ring to bust out of stasis and start flying over to the guy. And his name is Piero Rossi. And the ring is like, Piero, you have great rage in your heart. And it's about to give like the Red Lantern energy to him. But then Midnighter just snaps his neck and is like, okay, not dealing with that anymore. To which the ring then redirects over to Midnighter and was like, hey, Midnighter, whose name is Lucas Trent. Hey, Lucas, you've got great rage in your heart. And before it can do anything, Engineer grabs it and puts it in another stasis field. So it's like blinded by rage on all sides. And he's like, okay, so good job, Midnighter. You stopped the thing. Imagine if a guy with that power had even more Red Lantern power. You're great, Midnighter. And everyone on the team's like, yeah, great job, Midnighter. We all froze up, but you did the right thing. But as Apollo turns to Midnighter, Midnighter's just walking out of the room. He heads back to the holodeck, and he's like, I mean, I know I did the right thing. I know I did. Like, of course, but should I have really liked doing it that much? I'm the killer. I'm a sociopath. Like, what am I doing here? What happens when I let that control me? And in the holodeck, we see Batman, like a hologram version of Batman, show up. And he thinks that the moment that he starts to get too deep into it, they're going to try to get rid of him. And Engineer calls Midnighter back up to the deck because there seems to be some sort of problem. So yeah, that's it. Solid. It's just a nice little Midnighter insight story. It ties in with the Red Lanterns, which, judging off the cover of the next issue, seems like it's going to be a recurring thing. So we will get back to that. But no, it does a lot with just a small amount of pages, and pretty much, if you didn't read the Red Lanterns, you weren't really that surprised either. It sent you in with a good amount of information going into the fight. So overall, very well done. I'm going to go ahead and give this one I'll give it a 7.5. My only real drawbacks from it are that this dude who was previously with Stormwatch and then he just conveniently shows up here. They even say it's like, why is he here now? He laid low for 500 years. Why did he just show up now? Which, yeah, it's a little bit of a pull just in order to introduce some more dramatic whatevers. But it's solid. It's still solid throughout, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this weird little mini crossover continues. Dial H number 1, written by China Miéville, art by Mateus Santolucci. This is something different. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's something different. So we open in Littleville, Colorado. A guy is walking up his stairs to his apartment building. He is heavily overweight, and he's wheezing the whole way. His name is Nelson Gent, and he's with his friend Darren, who's basically telling him, like, hey, look, you just got out of the hospital for a heart attack. Maybe you should, like, try exercising a little bit and trying to get in shape. And he's like, it wasn't a heart attack. It was, like, more minor or whatever. He's like, no, it was a heart attack. And come on, man, I know you used to be into things. You used to, like, you used to box, you used to read, you used to, like, do things. But ever since you lost your job and then your girlfriend Julie, and he's like, look, I get it, I get the concern, but all I need right now is just to distract myself. And as such, he lights up 2 cigarettes at the same time in order to play it off as a joke. But Darren's not having any of it. He's like, look, even if you don't believe that you're killing yourself, you're killing me, so don't call me the next time. And he gets angry as Darren's leaving and shouts after him for, not being a good friend or whatever. But as Darren's making his way down the alley, he's jumped by a couple of guys, and apparently Darren works for a guy named XN, and these guys are here to collect on something that Darren did. So Nelson, he feels bad about yelling after his friend, runs down the stairs again and tries to talk to Darren before he gets too far away. But he sees him getting jumped, and he tries to jump in, and he gets his ass handed to him by a couple of the thugs. So he falls backwards into a phone box, and he's like, I'm gonna call somebody. I'm gonna call for help. And he gets on the phone and he dials a number, and then a massive explosion happens, big blinding light, and Nelson, despite being the one in there, outsteps a long, slender, almost alien-looking creature named Boy Chimney, who's like dressed in 1800s garb. And he steps out, and there's just this broken thought process to Boy Chimney. That's Nelson's thoughts trying to just coalesce, basically. Whereas Boy Chimney then goes around attacking each of the thugs and basically drowning them in smoke that he's able to control. And as he poisons all of them, basically, with carbon monoxide, he starts to fly off. But then he remembers, like, oh, wait a minute, Darren, got to go back and get my friend. And as he goes back down, he's like, wait a minute, those guys, they're dying because of this smoke. And Boy Chimney, seemingly, like, differently from, like, he needed convincing from Nelson's thought process, then disgruntledly removes all the smoke and lets them live before he flies off with Darren's body to get him to the hospital because he has some pretty severe beatings. So he drops him off at the hospital. Doctors take him in, and then he goes jumping across rooftops away, and before he gets too far, he turns back into Nelson and just collapses. So he wakes up, it's sunrise, and he has no idea what in the hell just happened. We then cut to a mobster, the guy who was going after, at least one of the lieutenants of the guy who was going after Darren, and he's like, something jumped my guys, and it's like something that we have not seen before. It's a new player. Like, I'm going to need some extra protection, so send somebody to help. And don't worry, we're going to take care of Darren. So then we cut to the hospital. Nelson's talking to Darren, and Darren admits that he's in deep with this mobster guy, and he was supposed to be somewhere, but he didn't make it, so they send his goons after him. And basically Darren just shoves him off, says like, hey, look, don't worry about it. It's not your problem. Like, just don't deal. And then as Nelson is leaving, he runs into a neurologist who's here to ask about Darren's condition, because apparently he reports seeing a crazy long slender figure that can fly with smoke. And Nelson tells him like, yeah, no, he's not crazy, but just don't treat him too harshly, despite the fact that he's in deep with the wrong people. So then Nelson heads back to the phone booth, and he tries to remember the number that caused it. He realizes like a phone number isn't going to help. Maybe it's something with the letters. So he tries chimney, he tries help, he tries back, he tries safe. And then finally in the end, he's just kind of talking to himself, and he's like, I have to know if this was what it was, and if so, and he tries typing in if so, which causes it. It causes him to transform again. But this time he's not turned into Boy Chimney. He just feels this overwhelming misery and sadness. So cut back to the lieutenant who is working for XN, and his like goons are calling up to him being like, boss, something's here, and oh god, my mom died, oh god. And boss is like, dude, that was 5 years ago, what are you complaining about now? And then we see that Nelson's transformed into a character named Captain Lachrymose, who causes intense misery in everybody he passes by. And he gets up to the boss, and boss has a gun trained on him, and he's like, remember your 7th birthday. You wanted a Viking helmet so bad. What did you get instead? And the boss is like, I got a cowboy hat. And he just breaks down crying. But then this old woman who's been in the corner the whole time stands up from her chair, and she opens up her eyes and her mouth, and they are pitch black. And there's just like this void suction being made from her. And his sadness powers don't work on her. It's like there's nothing at all inside of her. Like she's just a husk. So Captain Lachrymose just sweeps the legs, points over at the boss and says like, you leave Darren alone. And then he punches through a wall and leaves. The boss immediately gets on the phone and calls over to his boss, XN, being like, hey, something was here. And the boss is like, hey, I'm sending another address. You guys are going to deal with the issue. And if this guy says stay away from Darren, then we're definitely going to go after Darren. So It ends with Nelson. He's got a full trench coat and garb and stuff, and he's walking down the alley where the phone booth is, and he says, I'm going to get a reputation if I just hang around this alley too much, but this, like, the number was 4376, and I don't know what's special about that number, but letters-wise, I know one thing. It spells out hero, and we end with him going in and seemingly about to dial the number again. And that's where it leaves off. This was weird. Like, I don't know what to make of this, honestly. It was good. It was well written, and I liked the way the characters were progressing. It's very hard for me to get across just how frenetic, like, the pace of Boy Chimney was, and, like, the look of Captain Lachrymose was hilarious. There's a lot going for this, and I'm definitely interested in it. I'm not sure exactly what the plot line is yet. It seems like this mobster has bigger, higher connections to something deeper in terms of, like, someone who may be looking for this phone. I don't know, but I'm interested to see where it goes. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and give it I give it a 7.5. Art is also fantastic. They do a good job of making it stylized without being too crazy and over the top. So yeah, interested in seeing where it goes. Animal Man number 9, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Steve Pugh. We left off last issue with Buddy being overrun by creatures of the rot and then being possessed by one of the Hunter's 3. So, he's dead. This issue picks up with him going into the Red Afterlife, and basically he's talking about how he's always had some strange dreams, one of which that he recounts is him meeting his literal creator named Grant Morrison. This is a Scottish guy who says that he's a character in a comic book, which was an actual issue of Animal Man back in the day. So, yeah. But he's just sharing all this because he's like, this has to be a dream, right? This has to be a dream. So then we cut over to the family who's still driving in the RV. And Ellen's mother is like, maybe this is for the best. And she's like, what, Mom? That my husband went out to die? It's like, no, but like, I've never been happy with Buddy, but it's when he started putting you and everyone else in danger by doing the superheroics, that's where, like, I draw the line. I'm worried about you and the family. And she's like, it's not that simple. Like, but like, Buddy's just got to deal with this, and then everything will go back to normal. And she's like, psh, normal, yeah, okay. But then we see the rot-infested Animal Man flying through the sky. He grabs a bird out of midair and just bites its head off. Maxine wakes up from a nap and realizes that her dad's not there, like, anywhere. She can't feel her dad in the world anymore. Something is wrong. So then we cut down to Buddy in the underworld, and he feels like this place is familiar, but he's just looking around. He sees all these, like, bones and stuff like that. Just this flesh making up the entire world. And he's met by a guy who calls himself the Shepherd. And it's just this big goat man fawn thing who comes up, and he's like, oh, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm lost. Where am I? He's like, this is the Underlands, and you're in the Bone Orchard. And it's like, what? If you're lost, I'm the one who's going to help you out because I'm the shepherd. And he's like, I think I remember something. And then he just flashes back to the entire series as a whole. And he's like, oh, Maxine. Okay, I'm Buddy Baker. I'm the Animal Man. And Shepard's like, Animal Man. That's funny. That's a stupid name. And he's like, look, I think I may have died. I need to go talk to the totems, like, now. And he's like, oh, you want to talk to the big bosses? See, that's not going to happen. See, I don't know who you are. And unless you're an avatar of the Red, you're not going to go see the big bosses. And he's like, okay, well, here's the thing. I'm the father of the current avatar of the Red, and I'm supposed to be protecting her, so you're going to take me to see them now. And he's like, oh, sorry. Okay. So then we cut back to Maxine, who's freaking out because she realizes her dad is dead. Like, if he's not out there in the Red right now, then he's clearly not alive. So she's trying to convince her mom to go out and let her deal with this. And the mom's saying, of course, no deal. We're just going to keep driving and we're all staying together. But the Socks the cat comes up and says, like, all right, we need to keep heading east because that's where Swamp Thing is. And Ellen's like, nope, no Swamp Things, no Red, no totems, none of that. We're not doing any of that. And Socks starts yelling at Ellen, just like, You don't understand the severity of what's at stake. This is bigger than you and your family. This is about the fate of life itself. And then we cut over to Buddy, who finds some roadkill on the side of the road. He touches it, and he's able to get into the rot, or at least the hunter that's controlling him is. And the other two hunters are like, are you wearing Animal Man skin? And they're like, yep, and this way I'm going to make the girl ours. And they're like, no, she's learning too much. This is too risky. And she's like, I look like her dad. Clearly I should be able to convince her using this skin. And it's like, fine, but you need to lure her into the rot. That's the only way we stand a chance. And he's like, done, will do. So that's the plan, using Buddy's body. Meanwhile, actual Buddy is talking to the shepherd, and he's grotesquely apologizing. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were someone so important. I had the pleasure of guiding your little wing just the other day when she turned a fox into herself. And she's like, no, it's fine. Can we just get going? Because she's in terrible danger right now. And he's like, all right, here's the thing, though. Time moves a little bit differently in the Reds. Like, your now is not exactly now, but we'll get there. So they hop onto a ship to cross a blood ocean and make their way to a flesh desert. Okay? But as they move their way through, basically, there are all these creatures flying around, and Buddy asks, like, hey, what's all their story? It's like, all these people were connected to the avatar of the Red in some way. Some of them were previous avatars themselves. Some of them were helpers or assistants or things that just wanted to come here and be able to help. Like, these were all the people who helped the avatars. But the whole reason that the avatar right now is so important is because of that. And he points out to this giant pocket of rot that's just extruding out of the sea. And he's like, these things pop up every once in a while, but they've been getting much bigger and much more frequent. And that's why your daughter has to be the one that, like, stops it, that fights it back. Then we cut back to Ellen and Cliff. They're walking through a motel parking lot where they're going to be staying for the night. And as they do so, they come across Constantine, who shows up and says, like, hey, I'm here to help you save the world. It's time we had a little chat. And that's where the issue ends off. Next issue is the annual. That's going to be on the 5th week this month. So be sure to tune into that. But as for this one, it's good. It's a solid enough story. I really liked in the earlier issues us exploring the Red, and the totems were like doing the different things. I really liked the way that stuff was done. So to be able to go back there in a different part of the Red and handle it differently, I'm very interested in that. In terms of what the hunters are doing, very interested as well, using Buddy as a literal skin suit to get close to Maxine. My only real critique is that, I don't know, I'm getting kind of tired of Ellen and her mother just being like, no, we're done with this craziness, no more. Like, I get it that that's what people would actually do, is just fight for normalcy as hard as they can. But in a superhero comic, I'm just kind of tired of them just trying to stop things as much as possible. Like, at a certain point, you just got to accept, like, yep, okay, we got a talking cat and 2 guys with animal powers. Let's just roll with the punches here. I'm just waiting for that to happen. So if she's going to keep on fighting the whole way through, then it's just going to make me lose interest in the character. But as it stands now, it's fine. It's just getting on the precipice of that. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this issue an 8. It's very well done, as has the entire run. Definitely looking forward to the annual. Don't know what they're going to be doing special for that, but maybe it'll have to do with the Constantine reveal here. So, yeah, 8 for Animal Man, and I'm looking forward to continuing it. Swamp Thing number 9, written by Scott Snyder, art by Yanick, Paquette, and Marco Rudy. Last issue left off with the monstrous form of Abby impaling Swamp Thing with some massive claws. And this issue just picks up right afterwards, where basically Alec as Swamp Thing is just trying to get through to Abby, just trying to remind her of who she is underneath. And the entire time the Rot is just, and Seth is just yelling out like, nope, she's one of us now. There's nothing you can do. She is completely ours, one and all. And Abby rips off Swamp Thing's wings, and he's just laying there broken on the ground. And he keeps on trying to get it through. He's just like, beneath it all, you're still there. I know you are. And he does something. He's like, throws some green at her, and he apparently and this is his thing, because she starts revolting. Apparently, during the fight, he's trying to like tell her all the stuff about himself. He's like, "You're Abigail Arcane," and the Rot begins attacking him. He's like, "You're Abigail Arcane. I know you. You're kind. You're a nurse. You like spring more than fall. You like how the way Foxfire makes the body glow at night. You like food with way too much sugar. And most importantly, you like canned peaches with vanilla." That's important because what he did during the fight was he took vanilla seeds, itty bitty tiny, like incomprehensible seeds, and put them into Abby's body, something so small that didn't even notice, and then used his powers to make them grow, thus putting life inside of a rot creature and being able to free Abby from the control of the rot. So the shell starts breaking, Abby starts breaking out of it, and by the end he gets her out of the monstrous form. But Seath is having none of it, so he starts charging after Alec and just goes nuts. Like, he is absolutely destructive, saying how he's going to kill him himself. He's causing sandstorms and dust storms to just bury Alec and buffet him constantly. And it's just this long-ass monologue of like, "Do you know who I am? I'm the guy who's going to burn your house down." And he's just throwing all this sand on him, and he's like, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bury you here. I'm going to bury you here, and I'm going to keep burying you here every day. I'm going to build my throne on top of you, and you're never going to be able to escape." That's what's going to happen. And as he's about to be buried by Seath, Abby finally gets up, and she now has some level of power. She's covered in, like, flowers, which I think may have just been Swamp Thing's thing. But she stands up, and she's like, "No, Seath, you're done here. Look, you imbued me with the powers of the rot, and you've been whispering in my ear for my entire life. And I am so sick of hearing you talk. So shut up and die already." And she uses her powers to basically control the same rot that Seath did. And despite the fact that Seath seemingly is more powerful, she is getting the upper hand, and she is taking him out. So one by one, she starts snapping his bones and just breaking him apart until finally there is nothing left of him. He is just ashes on the ground. And, of course, Abby's brother is there, who I forget his name. I think it might have been William. I'm just going to say Abby's brother. So he's crying over Seath. It's like, "No, you're the king of the rot. You're supposed to be able to do this. You can survive. We can do it together." And Abby's like, "No, I'm going to make sure he can't." And she walks away as he's crying over Seath's body. And she walks over to Alec, and he's hurt. He's worse for wear, but he's still kicking. And as he gets up, she's like, "Look, I'm too much. Just leave me. I'm too broken." And she's like, "Shush. I'm a nurse, remember?" She's like, "Yeah, for people." And he's like, "Exactly, for people." And they embrace, they share a hug, and they just walk off into the sunset. Just, "Now let's go home." But then finally we get one last shot of William, who he's crying over the body of Seath. And then we see that Seath is still whispering to William, still is putting thoughts inside of his head. And apparently all of this was part of his plan. All of it, like, was a thing that was exactly what they wanted. And now, because of whatever happened, they are unleashing the original true father of the rot, the great one, Anton Arcane, a.k.a. Abby's father, as his hand just shoots up from a swamp somewhere. And that's the last page, is just his hand coming up. I'm interested. I'm down. It was a fast issue. It was it was a lot of big pictures, not a lot of text, but boy, I'm interested. I will say, since Swamp Thing has been introduced, they've been just yo-yoing him, where it's like, okay, he's super duper strong, but then he's weak to Abby. But then he's strong against Abby, but then he's weak to Seath. But then he manages to survive Seath anyway. So it's just like, all right, what? I don't know where he actually stands in terms of ability. It just seems like he let his guard down for Abby, but otherwise he's actually strong enough to do everything except beat Seath's, like, correctly, like, by himself. And the only reason he survived was because of Abby. That's what I'm picking up, at least, but it is a little bit confusing issue to issue of, like, where is he actually in terms of power? But it's solid. The art is fantastic the whole way through. I can't fault any of it. The only thing I wish is that Seath may have stuck around a little bit longer if he is truly gone, but I kind of doubt he is, because I think there's a whole lot more coming up to the Rot World stuff, including Animal Man. So, yeah, I'm interested. I'm very much into it, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how they handle Anton Arcane as the true father of the Rot. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this May 2nd, 2012. And like I said at the beginning, kind of short on time. There's not really any reason I can't go over, but I just tried to keep this within about an hour and 45 minutes on average, and I know for a fact this is going over. So why don't we talk about the comics that are coming out next week? May 9th, 2012 has 13 comics. Luckily, no new number ones, but we have the number 9 issues of Batgirl, Batman, Batman and Robin, Superboy, Green Lantern, Deathstroke, Grifter, Suicide Squad, Legion Lost, Demon Knights, Frankenstein, and Resurrection Man. Additionally, we have the number 3 issue of Night Force. You know, I know it's just how things shuffled up based off the Night of the Owls, but it's weird that this is the first time I think we're having Batman doubled up in a week, because there's Batman Detective, Batman and Robin, and Batman the Dark Knight, and they've always been on different weeks. This is the first time that we're having 2 in 1 week, so that'll be something. And just as a reminder, Superboy is a tie-in for the Culling, or I should say part 2 of the Culling, and Batgirl and Batman and Robin are tie-ins to Night of the Owls, where Batman itself is the quote-unquote end of the event, I suppose. And I'm sure there's some other tie-ins in there, because they just tie-ins everywhere nowadays. Everyone's crossing over with each other unofficially. It's a crazy world out there. Anyway, hey, if you want to talk to me, I'm listening. I'm here. I want to be there for you. Hit me up on Twitter, at DC Comics Podcast. Additionally, if you want to give me money, I'm here. I want to be there for you. Give me money. You can hit me up on Patreon, at MildFuzzTV. I'll take a 20. I just need to make it through the week. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm wrapping up this show. I am delirious at this point, and it is the middle of the day, so I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, try to remember that if it ain't broke, don't fix it.